In this video, I'm going to beat Pokemon FireRed with only the Rhydon-Line. Playthrough rules can be found in the description, and do note there will be spoilers for previous videos in this series. Now, let's talk about Rhyhorn and Rhydon. They are ground rock types. It's very interesting to me that Game Freak chose to reverse these two typings. It doesn't matter, but I always forget that they are primary ground types. As a Pokemon found exclusively in the Safari Zone in Generation 1, they always felt very rare to me, and I think Game Freak really wanted this line to feel like the most powerful rock type in the game. This comes with a consequence because Rhyhorn and Rhydon both have the slow growth rate, and this is usually the kiss of death in solo challenges, even more so when I am evolving my Pokemon throughout the run. Starting as a Rhyhorn, I will have to wait until the distinguished level of 42 to evolve into a Rhydon, and that means I'm stuck with some less than ideal base stats for a large portion of this run. Rhydon has 80 HP, 85 attack, and 95 defense. All of those are pretty good, but then its other three stats are absolutely garbage. 30 special attack and special defense, and 25 speed. As a ground rock type that looks like this, it makes sense that Rhyhorn would move slowly, but that's very unfortunate because this type pairing gives a lot of weaknesses. It takes 2 times damage from fighting, ground, steel, and ice, and 4 times damage from water and grass. I'm sure you know where this is going. Misty's Pokemon are pretty fast. They're actually extremely fast if you consider it from Rhyhorn's perspective. I expect the second gym to be extremely difficult, but before I get there, I have to first get through Brock. While ground-type moves would be super effective against his Pokemon, of course Rhyhorn does not get any until level 52. It starts with Horn Attack and Tail Whip, learns Stomp at level 10, Fury Attack at level 15, Scary Face at 24, Rock Blast at 29. I guess the same type attack bonus move is nice, but it's still pretty late. Beyond that, it gets Horn Drill, Takedown, finally Earthquake, and strangely Mega Horn at level 57. Like, I get it, Rhyhorn has a horn, and the horn is weak in the anime, which is thematically connected to the bug type, but it feels really off to have this type coverage. Luckily for Rhyhorn, its move pool is not all bad because it gets access to a lot of TMs and HMs. The ice moves, electric moves, and fire moves, all of which don't make sense. And then things that do make sense like Iron Tail, Earthquake, Dig, Rock Tomb, and Rock Slide. Rhyhorn's ability is Rock Head, which prevents recoil damage, so using a move like Double Edge is actually quite fantastic with this Pokemon. Okay, so now let's talk about Brock. Only having access to normal type moves immediately seems like a problem, but Rhyhorn does have Tail Whip, so I can lower his defense and deal more damage. Plus, both Horn Attack and Stomp have 65 power, and the latter of these moves has a secondary effect, which is a 30% chance to flinch. While Onix is strangely fast for a rock type, I won't be able to outspeed it. I will be able to move first against the Geodude and occasionally flinch it. Now in Generation 3, Brock's Onix does know the move Rock Tomb, which technically should do more damage to Rhyhorn than a move like Tackle or Bind. That being said, the AI sees this move as a speed control move, and if I am slower than Onix, which I will be, it's not going to use it. As a result, Rhyhorn is really not going to take much damage from only normal type moves, so I should be able to get through this at a fairly low level. Defeating the final bug catcher brings Rhyhorn up to level 11. I head into Pewter City where I defeat the camper. He almost gets Rhyhorn to level 11, so I decided to quickly go back, do a little bit of training south of the city to go up to level 12, and now I am ready to face Brock. I start the fight off just attacking the Geodude to see how much damage I'll do. It's a decent amount, but the Geodude does no defense curl, so once it starts getting set up, it makes more sense for me to use Tail Whip until it attacks into Rhyhorn with Tackle. Then with a lower defense stat, I can once again go on the offensive and knock it out. Alright, so I've made it to the Onix with almost full health. This is going really well. Brock's Ace has no way to raise its defense stat, so I can go with Tail Whip right away to lower this as much as is possible. After all, Onix has some of the best base defense in the game. That means essentially the only thing it's good for is teaching the player that normal type moves are completely trash, which just really isn't true. I can't believe I went my whole life thinking that, and then after coming back to Pokemon and making this channel, I realized that normal type attacks are probably some of the best in the game. With its defense lowered, Stomp does a lot, and Rhyhorn doesn't even break a sweat because it knocks his Ace out without going into yellow health. So that's an easy first badge, but the second one is going to take a lot of work. Luckily for me, the Boulder Badge does boost my attack stat by 10%, so that'll help speed up a lot of training in the next section of the game. Just before leaving Pewter City, I remembered to pick up repels. This is something that I constantly forgot when I first started playing FireRed, because in Generation 1, there are no repels in this mart. Inside Mount Moon, I make sure that I do a lot of optional training, because once I enter Cerulean City, I will not be able to come back to this area. I pick up the TM for Thief, and I teach it in the place of Tail Whip. This is essentially just for some special damage in case I need it against rock types. I also remember to teach the TM that Brock gave me, which is Rock Tomb in the place of Fury Attack. Thief is immediately useful against Hiker Marcos to defeat his rock types. Again, I really want to emphasize that I am getting as much experience as is humanly possible. With all of it, I head into Cerulean City, just under level 20. Of course, facing Misty right now doesn't make any sense, so I'm going to go up against the rival first. By the way, I want to note that Misty's Staryu, the first Pokemon on her team, has a speed stat of 38. Because I take 4 times damage from water moves, and in Generation 3, the Staryu doesn't just know Water Gun, it knows Water Pulse. Now, I was assuming that the battle against the rival would be fairly straightforward because I have Rock Tomb, but remember, I'm slow, so the Pidgeotto moves first, uses Sand Attack, and Rock Tomb has trash accuracy. Please go and watch my Cradily video if you really want that fact to sink in. Of course, I miss, so I get my accuracy lowered a second time before knocking his lead out. Then he sends in Squirtle. It does more than half with its first Water Gun, and so the second one is able to knock me out. Okay, so let's try that again. Hopefully less Sand Attacks this time. Well, in this case, Rock Tomb doesn't one-shot the Pidgeotto, which is really bad. Well, that opens me up to getting hit by Sand Attack again. Luckily, it doesn't. This might have to do with the AI being on low health and prioritizing damage-dealing moves instead. I defeat his lead, move on to the Squirtle. Here, I go for Stomp, which of course misses. Squirtle sets up its defense with Withdraw. That's another reason this thing is very good against Rhyhorn. I was hoping that maybe I would get a critical hit. After all, these are not tied to base speed in Generation 3, and I do, knocking the Squirtle out. Next he sends in Abra, which I one-shot with Stomp, and all that's left is Rattata, but it only has normal type moves. Tackle does 3 hit points of damage, I survive with 7, and Stomp 1 hits. Okay, with the rival out of the way, Nugget Bridge is going to go quite fast. I have put together this lovely little montage for all of us to watch. On this route, I'm going to collect items. The first one is Attract, which is not that useful. After defeating this hiker, I pick up a hidden elixir, and then continue fighting optional trainers. I'm battling everyone in every location, just so I can get the maximum possible experience. Of course, this opens the way up for me to pick up the TM for Secret Power. Believe me, this move is going to be critical for this run's success. For now, I'll teach it in the place of Horn Attack because that move has no secondary effect. Secret Power when on normal terrain has a 30% chance to paralyze, so it's essentially just Body Slam light. Leveling up grants Rhyhorn the ability to learn Scary Face, and I'm going to put this in the place of Thief, because I was thinking that perhaps it could be useful against Misty. That was my thought process at the time, but in the end that doesn't turn out to be the case. Heading outside of Cerulean City towards Vermilion City, I'm going to face the Innocent Bystander Rocket, and he gives me the TM for Dig, which I'm going to teach in the place of Stomp. Following that, on the next route, I continue battling optional trainers, gaining as much experience as I can along the way. Very rarely do I go onto Route 11 to fight people, but today I have to do that for the best experience yields possible. Upon reaching level 29, I have a chance to learn Rock Blast, which has the same accuracy as Rock Tomb. It's going to hit a minimum of 2 times for a base power of 50, but it could hit as many as 5 times, taking the base power all the way up to 125. In the past, I have definitely discounted this move's usefulness, but I'm not going to do that today. On the SSN, it is useful against the rival's Pidgeotto, and it actually one-shots with a single hit. That feels really good. Next is Wartortle. I figure I'm going to 2-hit this thing with whatever move I choose, so I go for Secret Power just in case it causes paralysis. It doesn't, the rival's Pokemon sets up Withdraw, and I knock it out for free. Kadabra misses its attack, and all that's left is Raticate, which I easily finish off. At the end of this fight, my Rhyhorn is level 32, and it has 37 speed. It seems like I'm close to 39, but it's actually quite far away because I'm going to have to defeat wild Pokemon in order to level up now because all the trainers are defeated. I decided to go back and face Misty just to see how she would be. Staryu is first, it goes for Harden right away, which is really encouraging. Then despite the defense boost, my Secret Power is able to knock it out, so I move on to the Starmie with full health. This is really good. Of course, it moves first, uses Water Pulse, and Rhyhorn faints to a single hit. That is really bad news, by the way. I made it past the Staryu without taking any damage, which simulates what would have happened if I had enough speed to move first. But the Starmie still just one-hit me, so what is the win condition here for Rhyhorn? I tried again, I luckily make it past the Staryu to the Starmie, it goes for Water Pulse once again, and Rhyhorn does survive. Because I have a chance to move, I lower its speed with Scary Face, and then I go for Secret Power, which does more than half. And that is where I realized that Scary Face is not the solution for Misty. I have to make it to the Starmie without taking damage, survive a Water Pulse, inflict paralysis with Secret Power, and by doing that, Rhyhorn will move first and knock it out on the next turn. If all of that happens, I will win. By the way, I tried this fight a bunch of times, but every time the Starmie just finishes me off. But eventually, I head back through the tunnel towards Diglett's cave because I want to train on these Pokemon to get speed EVs. Fighting them doesn't feel particularly good though because they're very fast, so they always move first, dealing chip damage to Rhyhorn. In the end, I train on some random Pokemon on Route 11 to get to level 34, where finally I have enough speed to move first against Misty's first Pokemon. Now knocking the Staryu out is trivial, so we just need to get luck against the Starmie. It doesn't happen in the first fight, and we're just going to watch a little montage of all of my fights against Misty. Do remember that Secret Power has a 30% chance to inflict paralysis. I don't even need the Starmie to not move because of the status condition, I just need to inflict it so that it has cut speed. Once that happens, I will move first and knock it out. To make the odds more in my favor, I have the Person Berry just in case her first Water Pulse inflicts confusion. The Staryu cannot use Water Pulse on me because I'm always going to be one-hitting it, so roughly 3 out of 10 fights should be a win against Misty. The only reason they wouldn't be is if the Starmie gets a critical hit with Water Pulse, which will knock Rhyhorn out. And I cannot believe the number of times that I reset here. It felt like Secret Power didn't have a chance to paralyze. I even paused my game, went online, looked it up. I was checking like, is the terrain in Misty's gym normal terrain? Can Secret Power cause paralysis inside of Misty's gym? And yeah, it can. I am just getting very unlucky. With a total of 16 resets on the counter, finally Secret Power inflicts paralysis, so Rhyhorn moves first, hits another attack, and with that I have defeated Misty. This is a second split of 47 minutes and 15 seconds. Yesterday I played Hypno and I got the best time yet in FireRed. Rhyhorn and Rhydon are not going to come anywhere near that. But I bemoaned the Misty split long enough. At least Surge, who is next, is going to be completely trivial. I have super effective damage in the form of Dig, and his Pokemon cannot attack me with their special type moves, so Voltorb is left with Sonic Boom and Tackle, and Pikachu and Raichu are both left with only Quick Attack. It is a little bit annoying here that Pikachu gets static against Rhyhorn, which yes, can paralyze ground-type Pokemon. I thought that this would have been changed in later generations of Pokemon, but no, that's actually still how the mechanic works. Still, paralysis is not what Surge needs to get anywhere close to winning, so with that, Rhyhorn has earned itself the 3rd badge. Inside Rock Tunnel, in the second last area, there is a move tutor in the bottom left-hand corner of the map. You can teach your Pokemon Rock Slide, and this is a great upgrade for Rock Blast. But I'm going to teach it in the place of Scary Face because that move just isn't going to be useful. South of Lavender Town in the guardhouse, I pick up the TM for Return. And then I head into the Rocket Hideout where I pick up the rare candy and just immediately dig out because I am forgetting that I need to face Giovanni in these games. Not remembering what needs to be done, I go to Pokemon Tower to face the rival. Luckily, Rock Slide can one-shot the Pidgeotto. I hope that that's going to be the case going forward, because eventually it's going to have Feather Dance. Next season's in Wartortle. Once again, it just continues using Withdraw, so I'm taking it out for free. That is making me think that perhaps Bulbasaur would have been harder to face. Execute is next. I don't one-shot, it puts me to sleep, but it knows no damage-dealing Grass-type moves. Kadabra is surprisingly not faster than Rhyhorn, so I take it out, move on to the Growlithe, which is last, and its ability Intimidate lowers Rhyhorn's attack stat. I'm mentioning this now because this ability is endlessly frustrating for physical attackers. That being said, it is not a problem in this fight. At the top of the tower, I have to take on the Ghost, and then I realized, oh yeah, I have not faced Giovanni yet, so I have to go back to the Rocket Hideout to take him on now. Dig one-shots the Onix, next is Kangaskhan, but it can't really do anything to Rhyhorn, so it goes down for free. And then it's Rhyhorn versus Rhyhorn, and mine is just way better. Look at Giovanni's moveset, such trash. Alright, now I can face the Ghost Marowak at the top of the tower. This is sort of a scary fight. It uses Leer right away, lowering Rhyhorn's defense, and it does no Bone Meringue. My returns are doing less than half, so it has a second chance to attack, but luckily it just goes for focus energy and I finish it for free. The next area of the game is Cycling Road. Here I run into some trainers that I did not want to fight. That's okay, because Rhyhorn is approaching level 42, so it's going to evolve very soon. Before the Safari Zone, I'm going to do something that I have not done yet in a FireRed challenge, and that is to use the move tutor over here by the Kangaskhan pen to teach Rhyhorn's Substitute. I filmed this run on September 26th, so I've been thinking about this strategy for a long time while all of you have been seeing these runs on the channel. The reason this move is fantastic for Rhyhorn is because it gives it a chance to survive water and grass type moves even though they would deal massive damage. I teach it in the place of Rock Blast, and then inside the Fuchsia City Gym, I defeat a Juggler and level up to 42. Therefore, Rhyhorn evolves into a Rhydon. A lot of Pokemon that we've gone through already in this series get symmetrical boosts to their stats, like say 25 in every point. That's not the case for Rhyhorn. It gets plus 25 to its base HP, defense, special attack, and special defense. It only gets plus 15 to its speed, but luckily it gets plus 45 to its attack stat, taking it from base 85 to base 130. Notably, its move pool expands, but overall I think this is a negative change, just because Rhydon learns Earthquake at level 58. I'm definitely not going to be getting that move through level up. I'm going to have to defeat Giovanni and get the TM instead. Okay, so now let's go up against Koga. This fight is going to be very straightforward. Coughing is slow, so I can move first and set up Substitute. This is advantageous because then Rhydon cannot get poisoned. From there, the fight is very straightforward. I can use Rock Slide to knock the Coughing out in a single hit. Muck is next, and while I could use Dig against it for super effective damage, I figured that going for Rock Slide was better just because it knows Acid Armor. The second Coughing is also a one-hit, and that leads to the Wheezing, which I use Rock Slide on, cause a flinch, and knock out for free. So the fifth badge was easy to earn. Outside of Misty, I've not been having problems with any of the gym leaders, and of course I choose to face Erica next, and she could be the next major hurdle for Rhydon to overcome. The first thing I checked in this fight was the speed matchups. Rhydon with 74 is going to move first against all three of her Pokemon. Rock Slide 1 hits the Victory Bell. Probably should have gone for Return there for more consistency. I continue using the Rock move against Vileplume and knock it out as well. All that's left is Tangela. Luckily I continue to hit and take it down. So while Erica had the type advantage against me, it didn't matter in this case. I fly back to Celadon City, head east, going through the Gatehouse into Saffron City. I fight some trainers in Sylph to level Rhydon up to level 47, and then I take on the rival. The first question is the Pidgeot going to be annoying with Feather Dance? Well, luckily for me, I move first and can set up Substitute. This prevents stat changes, so Feather Dance can't hit me. Now that's important. Remember when I said Intimidate is annoying? Well, it isn't if you plan ahead and use Substitute. I've spent so much time bemoaning the fact that physical attackers do not have a good fate in FireRed, but using this move they still might. Also, it blocks damage from Blastoise's critical hit with Water Gun, and then I knock his ace out for free. The three remaining Pokemon are much less intimidating. Execute is first. I can set up a Substitute here, blocking Stun Spore, and then knock it out with Return. Alakazam is awful in this fight. Reflect, Recover, Future Sight, and Calm Mind is its moveset, so I finish it off for free, move on to the Growlithe. As you can see here, Intimidate does nothing, and I finish the battle. Giovanni's next, once again a boring battle against him. I only want to note one interaction here, which is I have a Substitute up, and there is a way for me to get a status condition. That is, if I attack into a Pokemon with Poison Point, then the status gets applied through the Substitute, but I have a Pecha Berry, so it doesn't matter either way. The next two gyms are fairly simple for Rhydon. It seems like Sabrina should be a threat because she has special attackers, but Rhydon is fast enough to move first against all of her team members except the Alakazam. That means I can set up Substitute against the first Kadabra when it sets up Calm Mind, and then I can sweep through her next three Pokemon. It's surprising, of course, that Rhydon one-shots the Grass-Water type of Venomoth, but luckily it makes it by it to her final Pokemon, Alakazam. Even if she attacked me with Psychic, I would have survived because of my Substitute, and of course Rhydon's attack stat means that this is obviously a one-hit. Blaine is the next trainer, and of course he is also going to be easy. Substitute can't help me against the first Growlithe, which has Intimidate, because I can't set it up before it triggers. That does mean I'm going to have to win this fight with -1 attack, but overall that's not the worst thing in the world. Rock Slide still one-shots the Arcanine, and with that his final two Pokemon are easy to clean up. Alright, it's time for the only random NPC that I am talking about in FireRed and Leaf Green at this point. It is Cool Trainer Warren inside the Viridian City gym. In the last video, it didn't seem like he was a threat at all, but believe me, he is a threat. His first Pokemon is Marowak, which just barely survives Rhydon's return. This is my best choice against it because I have not been able to learn Earthquake yet. Now, because it lowered my defense with Leer, the rest of the fight is going to be more challenging. He sends in his Nidorina next, which is by far his worst Pokemon, so I just one-shot it, but Poison Point activates and I don't have a Pecha Berry anymore. Nidoqueen is his next choice. It survives one hit, goes for Bite, and I take 2 turns of poison damage. This is really stacking up. Next, he sends in Marowak, which uses Bone Meringue, taking Rhydon down to yellow health. While I am able to knock it out, the fact that he has 5 Pokemon on his team means that poison damage causes a loss. That was pretty frustrating. I came back into the fight, set up Substitute, and tried again. This time, once again, Poison Point gets me. I make it back to his second Marowak, but I still don't have enough health, so that's a second loss. Alright, I'm gonna fight other trainers in the gym and level up to 55 over a damage rounding threshold before coming back to do this again. Once again, Poison Point. So frustrating. By the way, I do not allow myself to use pickup on my HM users because it is largely RNG based, making these playthroughs harder to rank. That means I have a limited number of berries available to me throughout these playthroughs. I find that makes the runs more interesting overall. When you can just get as many berries as you want, things become much easier. I could have backtracked to Route 24 to pick up a Pecha Berry that I normally skip there, but I didn't know that that existed when I was doing this playthrough. So I have 3 resets against Cool Trainer Warren. In the Celadon City Game Corner, I'm going to buy the TM for Ice Beam. This could help if Cool Trainer Warren continues to be an issue. That being said, Rhydon really doesn't have very much special attack. I would like to avoid using this move if at all possible. I try the fight one more time in hopes that it will go well. One last thing I'll mention here, because you're probably curious, why not use the Silk Scarf to boost the damage of return? Well, the Silk Scarf is unfortunately a post-game item in FireRed. Alright, with Cool Trainer Warren defeated, now let's take on Giovanni. I expected this one to be fairly simple because I always make fun of his team for being very bad. I set up Substitute right away, knock out his Rhyhorn with Dig, and move on to his Nidoqueen. Return takes it to yellow health, it breaks my Substitute, and I knock it out, but that triggers Poison Point. I really hate this ability, by the way. I'm not able to finish the Nidoking off in a single hit. Poison damage stacks up in combination with his uses of Earthquake. Now, while I do make fun of his final Rhyhorn, if I can't one-hit it, it is pretty scary, so Rhydon loses to its pre-evolution. Alright, I've put this off long enough. Let's teach Ice Beam in the place of Dig. I'm hoping the special move will deal more damage to his Pokemon. It's still able to one-hit the Rhyhorn, so I don't have to go underground and risk the Earthquake there. While not able to do more to the Nidoqueen, there is another advantage because Ice Beam does not make contact. I take it out over 2 turns, move on to the Nidoking, and then I can knock it out as well. With no poison status, I move on to the Ace Rhyhorn. This thing is incompetent now. Ice Beam one-shots it and all that's left is Dugtrio. But these 3 moles are very fast, so they move first, hitting Rhydon with an Earthquake. But high base defense has something to say about that. I finish it off with Return and earn myself the final gym badge. The rival before the league is next. What could possibly go wrong? Well, Rhydon could have 2 less speed than the Pidgeot, and as a result it gets hit by Feather Dance before setting up Substitute. That is really bad, by the way. The Blastoise that follows is also faster. It has 103 speed, so I'm lagging this thing by 6 points. Because of that, I have a quick reset, and I really need to recalibrate what my strategy is. I level up to 58, surprisingly accessing Earthquake through this method. I could have taught it before the rival, but it wouldn't have changed the outcome of the fight anyways, and learning it through level up gives me more flexibility later on if I need to relearn it. Now that I have more speed than the Pidgeot, I can just use Substitute to foil its Feather Dance, and then Rock Slide to one-hit it. Next he sends in Blastoise. With my attack stat preserved, I do more than half with Earthquake. It just set up Rain Dance, and while it is able to break my Substitute, I knock it out on the next turn. Then he sends in Execute. Now it does no Solar Beam, but the power of this move is cut when Rain is on the field. I take my time, setting up Substitute, and knock it out with a combination of Rock Slide and Ice Beam. Growlithe can't intimidate Rhydon, so I knock it out with Earthquake, and move on to the final 2 Pokemon. Alakazam and Rhyhorn really aren't a threat, so I finish them off, and I'm headed to the league. On my way, I do some training, which perhaps is questionable. I fight this guy with 5 water-type Pokemon to level Rhydon up to level 62. I'm going to do 2 more preparation steps as well. The first one is going to the Celadon Game Corner to buy coins. I have just enough money for 4,000 more. This allows me to buy a second TM, in this case Thunderbolt. To this point in the run, I have saved 11 rare candies, so my second step is to use some of those to boost Rhydon's level up to level 70 before taking on Lorelei. I didn't want to chance the substitute against the Dugong. I figured it would just break it right away. Rock Slide misses and then Lorelei sets up Hail. Okay, substitute was the better choice. I crit on the next turn, keeping my damage range concealed. That being said, the Dugong does go down. I move on to the Cloyster and Rock Slide also one-shots it. That is encouraging. She sends in Jinx next, which Rhydon is faster than, so I one-hit, move on to the Lapras, and knock it out as well. The only Pokemon remaining is Slowbro. This is going so well. I use Earthquake, which takes it to red health, and then it hits Surf, which knocks Rhydon out. In the next battle, I try to use Substitute right away, but this time the Dugong uses Surf. Okay, fine. I'll try and set it up again. Maybe she'll go for Hail, but no, the answer is she's not going to. She just breaks the Substitute. This continues. Eventually I have to use Rock Slide to knock it out, but then Cloyster survives, uses Dive, and that is not a particularly encouraging move to lose to. In the next battle, the Dugong is more cooperative, setting up Hail, giving me my substitute, and once again I roll better damage on the Cloyster, knocking it out in one turn. I finish the Jinx and the Lapras, move on to the Slowbro. I can now tank a Surf and knock it out with Earthquake. That is, providing she stops using full restore, so these can be really annoying sometimes. Next is Bruno, and Rhydon shouldn't have any problems here, despite technically having a type disadvantage. He sends in his Onyxes first, which I one-shot with Earthquake. Rhydon continues the spree, knocking both the Hitmonchan and Hitmonlee out. Okay, so will the Machamp use Cross Chop, and will it do enough damage? The answer is no to the first question, it just sets up Bulk Up. And Bruno does not even use a healing item. He's that bad. Agatha's next. Now her first Gengar outspeeds Rhydon by 5 points. This means it moves first and hits Toxic. Because this fight's going to take a while, I should just reset now, use some rare candies to go up to 127 speed, where now I can move first against the Gengar and block its status conditions. Due to Levitate, I'm mostly going to have to use Rock Slide throughout this fight. The only exception, of course, is the Arbok, which she sends in second. Without accuracy problems, I sweep her team, and Rhydon has arrived at Lance. While this thing is not getting a competitive time, it's currently just over an hour and 51 minutes. It is potentially going to finish the game under 2 hours, so that was what I was shooting for in this attempt. Gyarados is first, which is frustrating because it hits with Intimidate. That being said, I do have Ice Beam on my set, so this isn't the worst thing in the world. I finish it off with a single Rock Slide. Earthquake is still doing enough to one-shot both of the Dragonairs, and then he sends in Dragonite. Ice Beam definitely would have done more damage. I went for Rock Slide, it doesn't do enough, and Dragonite breaks my substitute. That being said, this doesn't matter as long as I knock it out on the next turn. I should have used Ice Beam here for more accuracy. Either way it goes down, and now the Aerodactyl can't do much against me. With a resistance to all of its moves, it does pathetic damage, and Rock Slide takes it out. That levels Rhydon up to level 75, and now I am ready to face the champion. I've been checking in with the Pidgeot at the beginning of all these battles up until this point because I think it's hilarious that I have arrived here at level 75 with 128 speed. The Pidgeot has 130, so it's going to move first, giving it a chance to Feather Dance me. In this case, it doesn't, instead choosing Aerial Ace, the objectively wrong choice. I set up Substitute, blocking its Sand Attack and knock it out in a single hit. He sends in Rhydon next, which Earthquake one-shots, and then Blastoise comes out. My Substitute allows me to prevent damage here, finishing it in 2 turns, moving on to the Executor. This is where I make a misplay. Against the Execute, it was the correct choice to re-establish Substitute here, but for Executor, this doesn't work because it knows Giga Drain. Inspecting the effective power of my moves, I decided to go for Ice Beam. After all, it could freeze and it should do the most damage. It does more than half, but Giga Drain finishes Rhydon off. In the next fight, things start worse for me because I get hit by Sand Attack right away, and while I do make it to the Blastoise, if I miss once here, it's a loss. In the third fight, we see what happens if I get hit by Feather Dance. Then Earthquake cannot two-shot the Blastoise, giving it 1 turn to attack with Hydro Pump, which is going to knock Rhydon out. As the fourth fight starts and I get lucky because I don't get hit by either Sand Attack or Feather Dance, you're probably wondering if I have any rare candies left. If I could just get 3 more speed points, this would be a lot easier. And unfortunately for me, I do not, so I'd have to black out and fight the rest of the league all over again in order to get back to the champion with enough speed to move first. I didn't want to make that choice because the time is getting so close to 2 hours. I felt that I would eventually be able to just luck through here. Executor prevents that this time using Giga Drain, knocking Rhydon out. For the next fight, I update my moveset so that I'm less worried about Feather Dance. Thunderbolt in the place of Ice Beam will hopefully give me a 2-shot on the Blastoise. I check my damage range here and it looks like it's doing just under half, which is really unfortunate. Still, Feather Dance didn't hit me here, so I'm able to finish it off and move on to the Executor. Without Ice Beam, I'm going to have to use Rock Slide, but that might be the better choice anyways because it has a 30% chance to flinch, which is much better than Ice Beam's 10% chance to freeze. In this case, I don't get it, so Rhydon faints again. Don't worry, all hope is not lost for the sub 2 hour time. I can teach Rhydon Fire Blast in the place of Thunderbolt. I do need to avoid Feather Dance now, but at least I have super effective damage against the Executor. In this fight, I got hit by Sand Attack on the Pidgeot. Luckily, I do not miss on the Blastoise. It's the one that misses against me, so I still have a substitute. I didn't even factor that in when I was thinking about all the things that could go right for Rhydon here. Because I still have my substitute in place, I am not going to get knocked out to Giga Drain. Alright, let's see if Fire Blast can hit, and it does despite my accuracy drop. However, it doesn't do enough damage. But Substitute blocks the Giga Drain, I knock out the Executor on the next turn with Rock Slide, and then I make a choice which seems safe by setting up Substitute against the Alakazam, but this is not actually safe. It queues up a Future Sight and then breaks my Substitute with Psychic before I knock it out with Earthquake. Without Substitute, Arcanine lowers my attack stat with Intimidate, moves first hitting Flamethrower doing a small amount of damage. Okay, Earthquake, please do enough, and in this case, it does. So Rhydon has defeated the champion, earning itself a first playthrough time of 1 hour, 56 minutes, and 55 seconds, with 29 resets at level 75. This is a game time of 6 hours and 36 minutes. Of course, in the context of Hypno's 1 hour, 19 minute, and 4 second time, this really doesn't look very good. Another ground-type Nidoking was just able to set a time of 1 hour, 23 minutes, and 32 seconds as well, so Rhydon just doesn't compare with these Pokemon, but I think that should be expected. The ground rock-type is just not that good for solo challenges, although I should say it's quite good as a part of a team. It's always nice to have a tank that you can send out against normal types or powerful physical attackers. The first playthrough I did in FireRed was with Butterfree. It got a time of 2 hours, 7 minutes, and 47 seconds, almost a year ago, and Rhydon's time is better than this result. That being said, it is just barely not as good as Primeape's 1 hour, 55 minutes, and 9 second time. So today I'm going to place Rhydon just behind Primeape in the D tier. While this is its ranking for now, I should mention the fact that Rhydon's game time was lower than Primeape's. That fighting type had a game time of 6 hours and 44 minutes, whereas Rhydon had a time of 6 hours and 36 minutes. The reason I'm going to leave Primeape ranked ahead of Rhydon is that I forgot Bulk Up during that playthrough, and that is such a critical mistake. If I had Bulk Up, Primeape's results would have been dramatically better. Now with Rhydon, of course, I could have just planned my speed better for the champion fight, but even if I had done that, the battle still would have been difficult. I'm either waiting for a miss from the Blastoise with Hydro Pump or a flinch from Rock Slide against the Executor. Not to mention the fact that if I did have to train for more levels, it would take a very long time because of Rhydon's growth rate. The fact that Misty walls it so hard is really the main factor that holds this Pokemon back from solo challenge greatness. And the slow growth rate definitely contributed to that early game pain. And I am a sucker for pain apparently, because the next Pokemon I'm playing in FireRed also has a slow growth rate. Next week on December 22nd, I'll be doing my penultimate FireRed run for the entire year, and it's going to be with the Dragonite line. Yes, I am going to be starting as a Dratini. I expect that run will be worse than this one, so tune in to see how it goes then. Thank you so much if you support me on YouTube or on Patreon, it really means the world to me. If you made it this far in the video, you are incredible. Daily December continues tomorrow, so I'll see you then.